Good morning.
Welcome. Hi, Nick. How are you? Welcome to our first webinar of Safety Month. Does everyone know that June is Safety Month? Sure, you do. This week, our theme is, or the theme for Safety Month is employee engagement. And so we have actually put together a recording with one of our customers, Granite Construction, where they talk about how they implemented their program and improve their employee engagement. So instead of playing the whole video through all the way, because that's not as interesting, what we have decided to do is we will kind of tee up a few of the clips for you, and then Nick will kind of dig into the details so that it's not just one long video playing. So first, let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is just kind of talk about how real-time feedback can actually help with that employee engagement. So we will start there.
We had a solution in place, but actually none of our drivers knew we had a solution in place. There was nothing visible to them. There were some spreadsheet reports that would come out once a month, but they weren't engaged in the process. And I had a brother-in-law that's a truck driver, and he was on a platform that was receiving weekly scores on their mobile phone and would also receive feedback in the cab. And so I searched out to try to find something where drivers could get a instantaneous feedback of when they were doing something that was not correct, hard braking, hard acceleration, set over a certain speed limit, doing something that was really against our policy, and they would get immediate feedback. And we found that in Azuga, where they have an in-cab device that would beep at the driver to tell them, oh, this is a hard braking, oh, this is hard acceleration. And we found that people just didn't have a good sense of when they were creating these violations in our program and when they were being a bad driver. They'd get this report and they couldn't really tie the report to what they were actually doing because, that was 20 days ago. They couldn't remember it. But if they're in the cab and they are riding the brakes or, waiting to the last minute to apply the brakes, they're getting that in-cab warning. And we saw really an instantaneous improvement because we had this other system in the background that was actually recording the same stuff that Azuga does, but wasn't giving the drivers the immediate feedback. And when we put in the system with Azuga that gave the drivers the immediate feedback, we saw the other system that was still recording really drop down in the number of instances. So we knew, okay, this is working. When we're giving the drivers, hey, this is the expectation, and this is really measuring you for if you're a good driver or not. And then the other thing that happened was they were scored with all roughly 100 other drivers. And so if they were driver number 99 or 100, you didn't have to make any phone calls to that driver to say, hey, you're 99 or 100. They knew it. And the next week, I guarantee they were not in that. And so that really achieved what I wanted, is that, employees and people in general, they want to do a good job, but they need to be measured and get that feedback instantaneous. And the faster you can give that feedback, the more likely you are to have good results. And that's what we've seen, is we're giving the drivers the feedback and we have the results that we're looking for.
That's great. So Nick, based on what we heard from Mike, what does that real-time feedback look like with Azuga? Let's kind of dig into the details.
So when it comes to driver feedback, we've actually got a few different layers. And actually, before I even jump on the my screen share here, one of the things I like to show, like I said, are devices. So it starts with the Azuga GPS device, the data logger that most folks are pretty familiar with. A lot of folks don't know there's a speaker actually built into the device. Can give that. This is what Mike was referring to. Being able to beep at the driver, certain situations, hard braking, sudden acceleration, overspeeding. So those high threshold speeding events, and idling as well. Just letting drivers know when they've hit those limits so they can get a feel for it, so to speak. The next layer in that feedback loop is making sure drivers are aware of their scores. It's finding different ways to do that. A lot of our customers use our mobile app, the Azuga Fleet mobile app. Their drivers can log in, they can see their scores. They can also take a look at trips, see where those events are happening, helps to kind of generate that. And if we allow them to, they can see how they rank amongst their peers. For Granite specifically, one thing that was great, we actually set up a custom report. Their drivers do not use our mobile app, but they get a custom report every week. The driver gets this, lets them know, where they rank among their peers, their score, just the basic metrics of it. So a very simple report, something that's not very difficult to do, but just always giving that to them. And then the next part is that engagement, from their management staff, let them know if they're having conversations, being able to answer questions for them. And that tends to be very helpful. And then now our newest cameras, a lot of folks may not have seen them yet, the new Azuga Safety Cam Plus and Pro, they actually talk to drivers. So it's very
Oh,
neat.
that's great.
Yeah. So, things like, driving without a seatbelt or cell phone use, rolling stop signs, events that, they would be hard to just with a beep explain to you that what's going on. So they give you that part. Our previous AI cameras did beep at drivers and show an icon, but these ones are a little less, I guess they allows you to keep your eyes on the road. And
Takes a levels it up.
Exactly.
Nice. All right. Were you going to share your screen still, or are we?
No, we can jump right in if we want to go move on.
Yeah. Is there? Okay. Awesome. So the next clip that we're going to look at, because really, in order to get employee engagement from your employees, you have to have a good rollout strategy. How are you going to implement this for your staff, your team? So this clip is about how they actually did that rollout process.
What we did, we started off at one of our monthly foreman's meeting, and where we have all of our engineers, project managers, foremen, and told them, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. And you're going to have a device installed in your truck, so it's going to take us some time to get through the whole fleet here. But the first vehicle to be installed is my vehicle. And so you're going to see my score first before anyone else does. And then that kind of set the tone as they could see other people getting their vehicle on the platform. And it just became no big deal. And then when the gift cards were out there, and someone didn't have their system in yet, they felt like, hey, I don't have the opportunity to go win and show everyone how good I am. And that was pretty interesting to have that gift card installed right away, and people knew that. And so the people towards the end, it's like, hurry up and install my unit so I can try to earn that gift card. So that was pretty cool.
So, Nick, what I'd like to ask you is, how do we implement like some of those details to help us how do you actually do that implementation in the system at Azuga?
Absolutely. So, I mean, it really starts, kind of at the point of an order comes into Azuga. One of the first things we do is assign our implementation team to begin taking up working with customers. That starts with training, showing them how to use the system, going through everything there, but also getting information from our customers, the nature of their fleet, what types of vehicles they have within there, making sure that we've got the right devices in the right places as much as we possibly can. And then going through it with at different levels, making sure we have it set up to mirror a corporate structure as best as possible, doing that, and then finding out what their priorities are. Some companies, safety is the number one priority. Sometimes it's more efficiency driven. Sometimes it's more productivity driven. But at the same time, what we managed to do is have different parts of the system that we can use, and sometimes it's kind of a combination of everything above. So we get everything set up. We make sure our drivers are there. One thing we do differently than a lot of folks do is we try to keep the drivers, our groups, and our vehicles in a way separate. So they're all different entities within the system. So that way they can be moved around as needed and changed as needed as well. And then something else that was hit on too is bringing in the how are we going to accomplish these goals part of things. In this case, for instance, the rewards. Mike alluded to this one, bringing in that positive element of reinforcement, something that does make Azuga unique in a lot of ways. And we definitely can go through a lot of creative ways to use our rewards, but at the same time, just the real simple one being making drivers aware of their scores, finding small rewards for achievable goals, and it can really make a difference and creating a positive safety environment around a company.
Excellent. So the next step from taking you, so you've rolled it out to your company, the next step is really just getting that buy-in, that camera adoption and trust.
Mm-hmm.
So the next clip is going to be more of that type of, getting more into that. So let's look at the next clip.
Yeah, and so a couple incidences that have proven that to our drivers is our drivers drive around with trucks with big logos on the side of it, and a lot of people know Granite Construction Company. And when they see that, sometimes we can be a target for things. And we've had 3 incidents recorded where our person was in traffic. The car in front of them, you see the reverse lights turn on and the person backs into us in traffic. So that looks like we ran into the back of them if you didn't have a device recording that. And in 2 of those situations, the driver came out and said, "Oh, you ran into the back of me. You ran into the back of me." And we said, "No, look, we have a camera." And it didn't do any damage to our truck because we're driving these big, heavy trucks, but it damaged their car. Both those people just left the scene. So our drivers saw that, hey, this is made to protect me because the company trusts what I'm doing out there, but they don't trust all these other drivers. And here they're making it so that I have the tools that I can safely go out there. I know if I'm driving correctly and I'm following all the rules and someone cuts me off or something happens, I'm going to have evidence that it wasn't my fault. And so situations like that really changed our driver's attitude of that, hey, this is in there to protect me. Because I would have been at fault in these, people would have said, "Oh, I ran in the back of the vehicle." So
it's excellent. So Nick, from that perspective, let's say I wanted to verify a clip. How would I go about doing that? Can you walk us through what it looks like to look at a clip, to pull a specific one, etc.?
Absolutely. So a couple different layers here. So obviously we've got our safety cam tab. We can look at the videos through the breadcrumbs. We've also got a safety cam report. I can cover that one, but the main place that people are going to engage with their video content is going to be in the safety cam tab. Here, videos are brought in as they come into the queue. They're also categorized based on specific events. This is something we've improved recently. You can also do that by drivers, by date, by filters, by groups of vehicles. Depending on what your preference is, you can quickly go to certain types of videos. Like, for instance, let's say cell phone. That's one that when we talk about policy, generally it's against most safety policies and against the law in most places as well. So trying to avoid cell phone use while on the road is obviously a big deal. So that's one. I mean, watching a video is as simple as clicking on it. In this case, it's a snapshot that we have, but you can see clearly, what the story is. He's using his phone, driving on the road, and what speed he's traveling at and where they're located at the time as well. Additionally, video, there's times when we may need to pull video, as was mentioned there, in the case of a crash or something along those lines, where we need to request a video from a camera that may not have been uploaded automatically. That's done through the video request tab, where you choose a vehicle, choose a date and time, and do that request. And then additionally, just looking for, the correct parts, being able to coach through them. We also have means where we can actually comment on those videos.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, you can even tag the driver and let them know, hey, do you need to take a look at this, and do that as well.
That's excellent. Great. So the next clip we're going to look at, Nick, is going to be kind of the measurable side of things. This is all great and all, but how are we measuring it? How are we looking at the results of this? So this clip is going to take us to allow us to see how granite construction is accomplishing that.
Where we really have the advantage, and I would recommend this really if someone's starting up with a new platform, is actually start with turning off any alerts, because that's essentially the platform that we started. We had this other system in our trucks that did not give any type of alerts, didn't tell the drivers anything. It just recorded what they were doing. So it really allows you to benchmark how good or bad your drivers are. And then you can turn on the alerts and really get a good comparison to, okay, where were you before Azuga and a system that gives you alerts, and where are you a month later? And in that month period, we saw our average score on the old system go from a 66 average to about a 91 in 1 month. And we were at 66 for over a year, in that 60 range, plus or minus, for over a year. Our drivers weren't getting any of the feedback. The minute we give them feedback, they instantly became better drivers.
That's excellent. So Nick, can you show us some of the reporting that we will see as we are reviewing our customers?
Absolutely. So I'm just going to travel to our reports tab. There's some basics, great ways to kind of to see how we're doing, kind of benchmark us from week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter. One great way to do that, just purely on the numbers, is a summary report. I always say it's kind of the 50,000 foot view of your fleet. So we're looking at it from a really high level. We can see everything from, I just ran it for the last week. Apologies if I moved quickly, but we can see how many miles was each of my vehicles driving in this last week. How many stops did they make? What percentage of that time were they idling? If anyone ever asks, how do I pay for a GPS system? Knock idling down, and you'll pay for it many times over. But speeding, those types of things, how many hard braking events. We can categorize this. We can also sort by specific types of events if we needed to. For instance, I want to see who had the most speeding this particular week. I can do that part. Then from there, we can look at it a little bit smaller data. Maybe we're looking at it from a driver perspective, looking at our driver scores. We can see that part week on week, our driver score report. Once again, I'm just going to run it for the last week to show same information we were looking at in the rewards tab, but it just gives us a little more detail. Now we can see counts of specific events. If I want to, I can drill down on the links. Our goal is to try and give as much information as we can. Now, making it more visual, more actionable for folks maybe who like to see it that way, that's where I start recommending our dashboards. One really great place to start there is the event dashboard. These are some really powerful tools here to not just pick out key information pieces, so things like hard braking, sudden acceleration, speeding, but also looking at it as a trends. So we can see trend lines. For instance, our team speeding events, you can see over the course of the last week, the 7th, for instance, I think that was on the weekend, we had some of the most events that we saw, but then it breaks down during the week. So we can look at that on different levels as well. This is looking at it from, a week's time, but I could also look at it, for a longer period of time, quarter, for instance, maybe the last 90 days. Then we're going to see different events, and we get a little better idea as to where those things will lie. So, and then we can even break down from there and see who biggest offenders, or either whether by vehicles or even by groups as well. So.
That's really important. Let's see. Okay. So thank you so much, Nick, for sharing that. This is our last clip, and then we're going to get into the Q&A section. So if you have questions, there's a Q&A on the side. You guys can ask questions and we'll answer them. But our last section is going to be talking about the gamification piece. How can we use gamification to amplify these results? So that's what this clip is going to share with us.
The other thing that we put in place that created some incentives were Azuga allows for a gift card system. And so every week, the top 10 drivers out of roughly 100 can get a $10 gift card. Most of them select Amazon gift cards. And I'm hearing from a lot of the guys that if they don't get in the top 10, their wife wants to know why they didn't get an Amazon card that week. They better get their driving together and get in that top because they want that reward. So it's been a good gamification to see who's going to get the top 10. And it really, all that system is all automated. It doesn't take any special management. And that's what I really love about this platform. It's so hands off that it's putting all the control in the drivers. They're getting the feedback. They're making these improvements themselves because of all the feedback they get, the rewards. They know that this system is there to protect them with the cameras. So it's really had a good positive impact on our drivers.
That's great. So we touched on rewards briefly a few minutes ago, Nick, but I think we should dig into, let's say, what are the different ways we can give rewards? Does it have to be top 10? Can you show us some different ways you could reward drivers?
Sure. So I'm going to use our rewards tab, just kind of an example here. So I've worked with many different customers from, that have had look at different ways to use our reward system or to use our scoring in their reward system is a good way to put it as well. Obviously, we do have the mobile app. Drivers can see their scores. We have the ability at any time to send rewards to drivers. Very easy to do. Customers can actually load the account by doing so and allow and send those rewards to drivers. Let's say that we sent a $5 or $10 reward to a driver. Some companies look at it like any scores above a certain line automatically get a reward every week. Some companies look at it like the top drivers or maybe the most improved drivers over the course of time might be the ones who do that. Either way, when that driver gets a reward, if they're using the app, they get a notification there, lets them know you've got a reward. And then they get to choose what they want to do with it. It's really nice. We've got quite a lot of gift cards available. If there's certain ones in your area that you don't see on our list, let us know. A lot of times we can find them as well for customers. But, like Mike was saying, Amazon tends to be very popular. Obviously, it's something very usable to everybody. But maybe just getting lunch or getting something like that, it makes it very simple. Now, some of our customers have taken that to the extreme, I'd say. One of our customers actually every week that a driver has a score above a certain threshold, they give them a raffle ticket. At the end of the year, they raffle off an F-150.
Oh, whoa.
Sounds like a really big
Pretty
expense,
cool.
but they've assured us that F-150 pays for itself several times over throughout the year because their drivers are engaged. They want to be part of that, and they want to get that. So creating that safety culture really can be in the small rewards, but it can really be just in finding great ways to make drivers feel good about driving well.
That's awesome. Well, that was the last clip we have, Nick. So let's get into some of the questions. I have seen a couple questions in the chat, and I know that Zach has answered them already, but I think we could revisit them and just kind of make sure that the entire audience has seen them. So the first one that I saw was is basically around our AI training and how we're training the models to ensure that we're not getting false positives.
Yep. To play it simple, it's machine learning at the end of the day. The cameras are watching the drivers doing these parts. There's no such thing as perfect, but we'd like to get as close as we can. We're working with our developers, our hardware folks, with
Mhm.
everybody at all times trying to improve it. Every week we look at it, look at how we can make it a little bit better next week. And that's something we've been doing continuously, not just since our launch, but actually for quite a while, several
Mhm.
months. Our team's had these cameras, and
Mhm.
we've been very critical of them ourselves in order to be the best we possibly can for our customers.
Yep. And if I'm not mistaken, we're going to make it even easier to report on those the false alerts in the future, with giving you the ability to tell us straight up this is wrong, and we'll take care of it. So I think that is going to be coming in the future. So that'll make it even easier to ensure that the model is training properly.
And even something that was added recently by our teams, just being able to archive videos. So if I look at something
Mm-hmm.
and say, this obviously is not what I think, what I'm worried about here, you can actually just hit the little, looks like a little trash can, just hit that button. It'll send it to the
Mm-hmm.
archive. It does not delete it. It's still accessible. So if somebody archived a video that you want to get back, just go to the archived events and you can pull them up there and send them right back to the main queue.
Yep. All right. So another question was, if the co-passenger, so like the person in the passenger seat, is using the phone, is that going to trigger the alert as well?
It does not. And that's because the camera is actually set up to look for, which side of the cab the driver's on. We set them up
Mm-hmm.
in the US, they're all set up for the left. But we can't set them up for right hand if it was, somewhere in Europe that was
Mm-hmm.
doing that as well.
Right. I don't see any other questions right now. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Nick, to all of the conversation that we're having about employee engagement and improving our drivers.
I think we've talked a lot about the visibility for drivers and making
Mm-hmm.
things, making the parts where they get to understand their safety picture kind of conspicuous, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
finding ways to post scores so drivers can see it, getting them engaged with the app. I always say there's good questions that happen when a driver comes to you showing you the app and says, "Hey, why does Bob have a better score than me? What did he do differently this week?"
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, brushing some of those questions off, it's great time to talk to drivers and maybe take a deep dive. What is it? Is it how much they're driving, the nature of where they're driving, those types of things, or, where can they improve?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, alerts, we talk about this a lot in our system, and I'll just quickly, using the alerting strategically, we can have these sent to the drivers themselves in many cases, whether it's, that way they know, hey, there's a little checkbox in most of the alerts whenever we're talking about the, where it's going to, that shows paired driver as an option. We do that
Mm-hmm.
part. Checking that paired driver box allows that driver to get that message as well. So
Oh,
I find
nice.
that very helpful at times. And yeah, anything we can do to raise that awareness and make them part of that picture really helps.
Great. We have a new question, Nick. If
Please.
an employee is not wearing a seatbelt, is there an alert category like hard braking and speeding? So let's look at
So
that.
yeah, the new cameras, obviously, the AI cameras are our previous generation as well. That, obviously many of you still have. They do look for seatbelt usage as one of the options. So when we talk about the cameras, yeah, they're that machine vision, machine learning is watching to see for things like seatbelt. Additionally, and this is going to be a little bit more vehicle dependent, I say,
Mm-hmm.
we do have in our alerts, one of the things we can do, and this is actually one that's been there for a long time, is, if we can get that information from the ECM of the vehicle, it can tell us things like, whether or not the driver was wearing a seatbelt during certain points. So we do have a seatbelt
Oh,
alert. Like I said,
great.
it really is vehicle dependent. Not every vehicle gives us that information. We can't get it from every single type of vehicle, but at the same time, when
Mm-hmm.
we can set thresholds for how
There
much
you
time,
go.
that's based on the trip, how much time that driver's wearing a seatbelt.
So the answer is, if you do not have a camera, you can set an alert using the alerts module for no seatbelt. However, if you do have a camera, you have the ability to show seatbelt alerts right there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I hope that answers your question, Chris. All right, new question. What are the options? Okay, let me read it really fast. What are the options available to identify drivers without cameras? We have multiple drivers for each of our vans, and I think we do have some great options. Nick, do you want to
That's
share?
that's a really great question. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of the ways that we do it, and I don't have one here with me. I usually do. So One of them is our Azuga Fleet mobile app. So we have our app set up. We can do it a couple different ways through there. One of them, when a driver gets to a vehicle, they go to the app, they can scroll down to a specific vehicle and just choose the name manually off the list. This system can actually be set up to look for vehicles that are only within a certain range of the drivers, say 75 yards, something along those lines. The next one would be using our AFM app to Bluetooth pair with the GPS device in the vehicle, so that we can do that one as well, where, so it knows this driver is associated with this login. Does this is the person driving this vehicle? The
What
other
if they don't
way,
have phones?
the other way, and once again, using the mobile, that's actually become our most popular one lately, is a QR code. We set it
Okay.
up for QR codes. We can actually print out a QR code sticker, put it up on the dash or in the book that goes with the vehicle. That driver can scan that QR code. If they're using our app, they can do it right in the app. If they're not, we just need to make sure that the driver phone number is in the system, so that because it will generate a text message that goes to our servers, and it'll associate that driver based on their phone number. So really, really good there. And then our last one, we've got our beacon card. Some of y'all may know these ones. It's a little Bluetooth card that drivers can carry around, automatically detected by our devices as well. And they can associate drivers that way.
All right. Can you talk more about the app that uses Bluetooth to automatically pair with the device in the vehicle? What's the name of that app?
Azuga Fleet Mobile.
Yep.
And it's the same app that drivers use to see their scores. It's the same one we do have messaging. It might be great for us one of these days to go through the app, maybe show everybody as well, but it's
Do you want to pull it up now? Like, we have a few minutes. You could show them in the app demo, I think.
Yeah, let me see if I can switch up here.
Okay. I know to put you on the spot. This was not planned. But I do think that there's a little bit of interest here, and we have the time, so let's show.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can pull that one. Oh, there it is. Okay. I've got a driver here. Sorry, I forgot I was going to pull this one up and have it queued up. All right, now. So obviously the app has a driver and an admin side of it. This is kind of an important part of what we do here, because it's, it can be used obviously by supervisors in the field looking for drivers, where they are, what they're doing, looking at scores and those parts. But for drivers, and I am not going to have a lot in the way of scoring on mine. This is a driver I haven't used a little bit lately, but I'm going to quickly log in here just to make it easy. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. As you can see, I don't use this one as much here.
Oh, good.
All right. So, all right, there we go. Allow, go. There we go. Sorry, the app asks for a lot of permissions, and depending on what sets parts we're using, it may be asking for things even like cameras or Bluetooth or location, because many of the features enabled are in there. We do also have new enhancements for our equipment tracking that recently launched as well. But here it is. Here's kind of that main dashboard. And I do have everything turned on for my drivers. So a lot of it here is stuff that some of y'all might not have seen before. But at the same time, scoring. What is my score? Where's that part of it? Safety cam. This is really important with cameras. Drivers can actually see videos that are associated with them when they're driving. So it can be a really useful tool. We can allow them to or not, if depending on what the options are. Any of these things are optional to have in the app at the same time. But allowing drivers to see the videos generated while they're driving can really lend those good insights as well. We were talking about the pairing, and I don't know if I've got which one I've got set up on this driver. I had QR codes set up, but I don't know if the camera's going to work here.
Okay.
But just wanted to kind of walk through it a little bit. Like I said, there's a lot of different parts: messaging, utilities, installation. Here's the pairing. Sorry.
Is there any way to zoom in that, Nick, to make it a little bigger? I think it's
Let me see if I can. I apologize.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can. It's the demo we've got runs this way.
Better.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
See, I can might get it. If that worked, then I'll pull it a little tighter even. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, the pairing in here, there's a few different ways to do that one. So whether it's pairing with a specific vehicle. This would be more like the example of a manual pairing. But at the same time, it can be used for, like I said, that QR code pairing. We can look at pairing histories, all of that part as well. But this is the app, Azuga Fleet Mobile, that we use for that part.
Yeah. Yeah. And this even gives the admin, so like as the person who is in charge of the fleet, you can kind of manage your fleet on the go as well. You don't have to be tied to your computer all the time. There are quite a few things you can manage in the mobile app as the admin, so I think that's pretty useful as well.
Of course.
Yeah. Anything else you want to show here, Nick, since we have a few more minutes, or do you want to show us what the scores look like? I know you don't have a score.
I actually don't have a score in mind right now. I can't show the rewards. I think this is really cool.
Okay.
And this is one we've got, for drivers, folks a lot of times ask me, what does it look like when a driver gets that one? So one thing we can do, of course, we have notifications built into the app for what that can be here at the top, but the rewards tab, when a reward comes in as a driver, I get to decide what I do with it. So I get this congratulations on your reward. When I want to process my reward, then I could go through, choose that gift card that I want to use for that one. The nice part is on the back end, admins can go through and not just select which ones, make sure every drivers can see as many as possible, but also go through if there's ones that aren't applicable or maybe competition or companies that we don't want them spending money at. We can also uncheck those ones so they can see the ones that we want them to. So works either way. So
Frank made a great comment that I think is important, is to build those HR policies for driver accountability basically building that driver accountability into HR, because that makes it even more impactful, and that can really help the organization. So I think that's great, because he's right. Driving is not their job. Driving is just a means to get to the thing that they need to do the real job. It's just a tiny piece.
But it also can be the job in many cases. We've got folks who are drivers. And the one thing folks will ask me a lot of times is, little questions like, a good one is, I get all the time, what happens if my driver unplugs a device? First thing I ask them is, well, what happens if your driver unplugs a device? Right back. Because if there's sometimes we have to have that mechanism. What happens if, and I hate to put it that way. I like to put the positive reinforcement as much as possible, but as mentioned, having that built into part of the company policy, HR policy, means that, a policy can have a little bit of teeth to it, can be more useful in a lot of ways. It sets clear boundaries for drivers, just like the buzzers and the, giving them that instant feedback in cab does. They know where the limits are and allows them to adjust accordingly.
Thanks. Yeah. Any other questions? I think we can wrap it up then, Nick. Any final thoughts?
No, I think we're good there. We've touched on a lot of good topics today.
Yeah, we did. Thank you so much for taking the time, Nick, to do some of these demos with us. And of course, we want to thank Mike Willis from Granite Construction for spending time in the interview. I know he wasn't able to join us this morning, but we managed to make it work. And I thank all of you for participating. I thought the chat was very lively today and a lot of great questions. So everyone have a good day.